Hello everyone, it's Jin'taan here, and today I'm going to be talking about the upcoming Alliance Tournament 15, or more specifically, about the openings that one might expect to see utilised by teams participating in it. Structured openings are a part of almost every game with a predictable starting point, from the E4 in chess to the blue buff invade in League of Legends. But unfortunately in the Alliance Tournament, there are so many things to look for in the first 30 seconds of a match, from what both teams have brought to how they might execute a win with it, that we can often gloss over these crucial beginnings to a fight. As such, I'm going to be looking at a few of the key opening plays that various compositions use, so that you can get an idea of what both teams are trying to either achieve or prevent in the opening part of the match. The first opening play that we are going to dissect is logistics trading. This opening is used by teams with a large amount of offensive control, such as heavy newts, grapplers and webs, and high DPS. This play is especially favourable if you have high burst DPS, such as if your comp is based around rapid heavy missiles. As such, it's most regularly used by the Quad Navy BC core and the Typhoon Fleet core based compositions. All-in comps based around this strategy are typically referred to as Kingslayer compositions. And in general, this opening play really benefits the team which wants a shorter match, either due to the fact that they have better EHP but a lower sustained tank, or would be better able to leverage their comp's advantages over the opponents without a logistics on the field, such as burst DPS or greater offensive control. In order to break down the decision-making and movement involved in logistics trading, however, let's take a look at two simplified teams. Here, the red team has 2 battle cruisers, 2 battleships, 2 frigates, and a single logistics cruiser. And the blue team has 3 frigates, 3 battleships, and its own logistics cruiser. Of these two teams, the red team is going to be able to make by far the better use of their logistics cruiser, however, as the boosts from their battlecruisers are likely going to enable it to rep harder, longer and faster than the blue teams. And as such, the blue captain will make the decision to open up with a logistics trade. This means that when the countdown in local hits 0 and the match is started, the normally defensive or screening tackle of the fleet is brought in aggressively in order to get first tackle on the red team's logistics ship. This is then followed up by the rest of the heavy core of the composition, in this case 3 battleships, pushing through to the logistics cruiser directly in order to overwhelm any screening tackle that the opposing team might have. At this point, newts, webs and grapples and pretty much any form of control that they have is placed on the logistics cruiser in order to ensure that the only way that the logistics cruiser can get away is if all of their core is killed, which is something that is eminently difficult to do. Meanwhile, the logistics trading team sends its own logistics as far away as possible from the fight as it can, likely assigning whatever remote repair drones they have to it as well. This is in order to make sure that their logistics lives for as long as possible under fire from the enemy team. However, as the red team's tackle frigates are not being controlled as any normal defensive screening frigates from the blue team are being used offensively, they are free to catch up to and hold down the blue team's logistics cruiser themselves, putting both teams' logistics in jeopardy. In fact, at this point it's highly likely that both teams' logistics will die. However, in this case, the blue team has been able to secure a positioning and time advantage, as they are likely to have been able to kill the enemy logistics faster, by making the proactive call. However, from here it simply comes down to execution as to what will happen in the rest of the match, as it is entirely possible that both teams could win. The next opening we're going to look at is something a little more mechanically simple, but still incredibly impactful on how the match itself plays out long term. And that is an opening where you focus as much of your damage as possible on your opponent's support, a tactic typically referred to as fly killing. This is typically done by teams with a large amount of long-range, medium weaponry, such as rapid light missile launchers, beams, or artillery. Comps which are most apt to do this include Rapid Light Missile Kite or Quad BC Core, although more dedicated comps based around the Sleipnir and Hurricane do exist in order to keep this kind of tactic going throughout the entirety of the match. Focusing a large amount of one's damage on a typically hard to hit target like a support frigate does seem counterintuitive, as whilst they might have lower resists than other targets on the enemy team, they are likely to have more mitigation in the form of sig tanking. However, as an Alliance tournament match starts with all ships at 0 velocity and with nothing locked, early on in the match, key support ships such as Kitsunes and Hyenas are likely to have low transversal as they attempt to build up their speed. This is then compounded with the fact that they will use micro-warp drives in order to increase their speed, which leads to their signature being vastly increased during this time. This allows the enemy team to very quickly lock them up and apply full damage to them with their turrets, which, if focused properly on a single target, can allow the minimal buffer of a support frigate to be burnt through very, very quickly, killing it before reps can possibly land. In fact, this leads to a very interesting leveling game, as upon seeing a composition which has a large amount of potential to volley off their support right at the start of the match, logistics will often attempt to put pre-reps on a target which they think might be a priority from the opponent, such as a hyena, letting the team which is attempting to do the fly killing put their volley onto a different support ship such as a bomber instead, unless the enemy logistics pilot can ascertain that they know that he knows that they should shoot the hyena first, and instead will go for a bomber, leading to him putting pre-reps on the bomber, which is something that I in particular found fascinating to watch when looking at Quad BC versus Typhoon Fleet Corps matches, where both hyenas and bombers were very critical to how that comp played out. Now, the final opening that we're going to look at is something that anyone who is familiar with small gang warfare on Tranquility will at least be familiar with, and that is the art of simply kiting away from your enemies, which is primarily done by teams with large amounts of mobility and range, and conversely a weakness to offensive control such as webs or newts. Examples of compositions which use this include the RLML kite setup and the drone kite setup, both of which are likely to be common during the opening days of AT-15, given what we saw in the feeder rounds. Now, it may seem silly to analyse kiting backwards as an opening play, but that belies a lot of the intricacies that are introduced to kiting back within the tournament, and more specifically within the arena itself, as just kiting directly away from the opponent as you would do normally will quickly lead to issues, as you will be quickly constrained by the boundary of the arena itself, meaning that you'll either cross the edge of glory and be instantly killed, or your entire fleet will have to stop for a couple of seconds and start moving in another direction, drastically slowing you down and giving the opponent a chance to catch up and maybe pick off one or two members of your kiting fleet, which, due to how fragile kiting comps tend to be, can be catastrophic to your chances of victory. As such, experienced kiting teams will curve around, attempting to keep their average speed during the burn away period as fast as possible without reaching the arena edge, or at least without flying into it. And as if the arena edge wasn't an obstacle enough, there is another factor which kiting teams have to take into account: the micro jump drive units which are scattered around the center of the arena, as these will send any ship sitting on them 100 kilometers in any direction, allowing wily enemy teams to quickly plant heavy tackle such as Vindicators or Balgorns in their midst. As such, kiting teams have to pay close attention to what beacons the opposing team is sitting on, and ensure that they're not in range to be jumped on if they are to use them. All of this just piling on to the traditional decisions and information that one has to handle at the start of any match, such as choosing a primary, screening any tackle that's coming in, and making sure that you get reps on your own ships which are being shot. Thank you for watching. I hope this put a little bit of what happens in the start of every match into context, and really bring to light the importance of those opening actions that are taken by various teams. If there's anything I can help explain about the Alliance tournament, please feel free to put it in the comments below. I'd love more ideas of things to make videos about. Special shout out to Lucia Deniard and Moderator, both of whom were invaluable in putting this together. And don't forget to tune in to EVNT, who are hosting the first couple of weekends of this year's Alliance tournament. That's all for now. fly smart, and take care.